You're listening to ITDRC's Women in Tech series, where we talk industry pioneers, advice for getting to the next level, and the women out there doing it all. I'm your host, Hannah Ridings, and on this episode, we're talking to the CMO of Everbridge, and ITDRC volunteer Stacey Wu. Stacey has lived all over the world, holding multiple CEO, COO, and CIO titles, and they've all taught her one thing. She believes in a direct leadership style. So if you're a woman managing a team, this is the episode for you. We're talking winning attitudes and delivering results, so stay connected. You're listening to Women in Tech.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This month, we have Stacey Wu. She is a ceiling breaker in her own right, and she is also an active member in ITDRC. She's a busy woman with a lot of fearless advice for us today. So, Stacey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Feel free to introduce yourself, just for anybody that doesn't know you here. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what you do for ITDRC.
Okay, so I participate with ITDRC for several months, maybe beginning of the year. I was introduced to the organization with people I used to work with from Fortinet. And so that's how I got involved. Basically, the ask was, ITDRC work with a lot of tech companies. And in that process, there may be relationship could be built for publicity reason, for PR reason, for better donation. So those are the reasons that we're trying to help to connect the dots and establish a connection with the corporate sponsors.
So we're starting off this slide with a quote from you. Don't ever think there's a glass ceiling. If you think there is one, there will be one. And I love that. We always start out with a quote. If this is your first time on this conference, this is a time for us to get together and regroup as the women in tech and build each other up and give each other advice. This is our vision for this Women in Tech organization. It's a strong, supportive network to establish a community of support for women in technology and give back to other women in the field. This is a little bit about Stacey Wu. We won't hit on every single one of these points, so feel free to read this slide. We're going to jump right into the questions. Can you tell us about the early days in your career? I think that's a good icebreaker. You were telling me about an experience in Japan where you were the only woman in a room during a business deal.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just cover the fourth bullet, which is I grew up in Asia, and then I came to US for education. And in that process, I had a computer science, and then I went to MBA. But in my tech career, I went through many different locations. And one of my journey, which is this Japan topic came up, is I went to Asia Pacific and for a 2-year stint, almost like an expat assignment. I took care of 17 countries. I managed 17 countries. So one of them is Japan. And I went to a management meeting, and I was the only woman there. And at the end of the meeting, people decide that they want to go to karaoke. And then this is a hosted bar. So there are other women that's pouring drink for other guests. And I was the only woman. And it felt fairly awkward that there's someone that's servicing me.
Yeah.
So that was an awakening moment, I guess, to realize you're the only one.
To realize you're the only woman in the room. And we were talking about that the other day, that you feel confident being the only woman in the room. What helps you gain that confidence?
I just never thought about these jobs as a gender, there's a guy job or women. I got into tech because I was in computer science. I was doing coding. So naturally, I was in a world, mostly there are guys. And even using ITDRC as an example, the kind of technology set up, it's all communication network stuff, right? So it's a bit intimidating, but it's okay if once you want to just start learning and understanding the problem that you're solving for and who benefit from the solution. It's no longer about gender, or it's more about skill or whether you can solve the problem.
So you haven't faced those gender roadblocks in your career. You've just focused on being the best, really.
I yes, I don't know whether it's consciously or unconsciously. I don't want to think about those boundaries. Um, Being Asian myself, I don't want to think about the racial boundary. I don't want to think about the gender boundary. And this maybe tie with that opening statement is, if you think there is a glass ceiling, then there will be one. It's often we give ourselves the boundary. If you don't think there is any boundary, you just keep charging forward and go as far as you can go.
Right. I totally agree with that, that usually women in their own field set up their own boundaries, and it's a survival technique. And you were talking about that earlier as well, that women often, they're so fearful that they aren't making some of the decisions or going after what they want. What does replacement value mean to you? And can you tell us about that strategy and theory that you practice?
Yeah, I was describing how to get raise, right? Women
Mhm.
tend not to ask for raise, or it's just kind of uncomfortable to say, I want, I deserve to be paid fairly. So I think that particular notion, it's not so much about pay. I want to I want to be treated fairly. I think the fairness is more of the driving force. Um, so I mentioned this part is, how do you negotiate salary? My early career days, I used the concept of your replacement value. If you work hard, you contribute very well, and then if you decide this is not the job for you because you are not compensated properly or right, think about how much they will have to pay to hire your replacement, and the time delay and the gap and the productivity loss. So, and have the courage to say that's how much you deserve. And then I think I also in that same notion to say, if you want to have that courage to ask for more, you also have to prepare for plan B. Your plan B is, people may say no, people may not give you the promotion or the money you want. Then what is that particular moment? What do you want to do? Do you want to go find a different job? Do you want to go do something else? Once you decide your plan B, it's not that hard to ask for what you want.
So to line out those steps for everybody that you recommend, it's ask for more and prepare to have that next step and move forward fearlessly. And I think that's some of the most brilliant advice I've ever heard, because there is that notion that I'm just lucky to be here. I'm going to keep my head down and tend to make everybody happy and not make waves. And you definitely have experience making waves. I believe you dealt with a situation this week where you were put on the spot and it made you worry about how people would think about you, but you moved forward fearlessly. Can you tell us about that experience?
So this week, I joined a company recently. I joined Everbridge, which is a solution that ITDRC also use, FEMA use as well. It's the notification for disaster. So I joined the company. One of the teams that report into me, that resource has been diverted to many different other groups. So my role is to bring it back, rebuild that team. Unfortunately, they went to other groups that I need to kind of take it back. And that conversation is never easy So people start throwing comments that your team is not adding value. So I don't personally take offense about it because I'm too new at it. It wasn't because of me, but I feel like that statement made publicly, it's very damaging for the team. It hurts their morale. So then at that particular moment, what went through my head is I need to stand up for the team. So I went forward to argue for the resource to come back. Um, it sounds simple, it sounds logical, but you are dealing with, you want people to give up what they have in order for you to have what's right. So that's the session we went through.
And now that you're in that position, that you're above people, you've risen up in your own career, how do you think people perceive a boss and a woman in charge? Have you come across any of you need to win people over?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I would say yes, you do need to recognize uh, a woman in charge, that sometimes people have their perception or perspective, want to label who you are. Early days, I got advice from one of my female boss. She said, don't bring cookies, don't bake stuff, don't bring food to feed other people. You, because I know it sounds kind of,
Yeah.
you don't want to be labeled as a mom at work. You are there to do a business job, and you want to demonstrate your worth by showing business results. So while we all are nice and we could bring cookies or muffin, that accidentally possibly label you. So just be mindful about it.
That's excellent advice. Speaking of your early career, can you tell us how you got into tech? I know we discussed earlier, I asked, did you come from a family where women, were in roles like you in positions of power? And you said no. So what led you to this tech world?
I'm a more logical person. I chose computer science, and naturally from computer science, usually the job is to be a programmer. Um, I did that for a year or two. Then I kind of felt like that was fairly lonely to solve a problem all by yourself. So I gradually moved towards sales marketing. And that's with the tech background, that combination works. And there are very few women that have the technical background and go into sales marketing in tech. And I did product design. I I designed the notebook or PC you guys are using 20 years ago.
So, I mean, you have to have like a secret. You're in a competitive market. People may not know, but now you're in the Bay Area, or San Francisco area, California, and tech is booming there. How do you stay competitive?
You have to have a large network. So I would recommend people build your own network. This is not gender boundary of network. You should have network with people with similar skill sets. So if you need help, they solve the same problem you're solving for. You want to have network that's one or two level higher than you. So they will help to identify possibly your next job for you. So I think in the Bay Area, network is everything. So that's partially how people move around in the Silicon Valley. Build your own reputation so people know that you are pretty good doing the job you're doing, and then have a network of people that you stay in touch. So when you want to change roles, just contact your network.
So, speaking of network, now you are hiring people. And what are you looking for when you hire people? You said something the other day about mini me's, and that is your technique for making sure that your team is the strongest team?
No, actually, it's a contrasting point.
Contrasting mini me's.
Right. Earlier in my career, and I would, because I just got there, I just got promoted, I just became the first line manager. I thought I'll just hire mini me. If I did okay, that means someone that behave like me, have similar background like me, or study career combination, probably will do okay. So that's probably how that got through my first couple years. And then when I start managing international business and become manager of manager, then I realized that formula doesn't work. You have to have a complementary skill. You're not going to have all the mini me that think the same way, because then everybody will do the same thing. Then it's not the best answer and solution. You want to find complementary skill. Some people are more thinkers, some people are more doers, and some people are talkers. They all have skill set that you can use and harvest the best out of those skills and make the team a balanced team.
I love that idea of balance, because when you are dealing with a boss, sometimes they are uncomfortable with people knowing things they don't know. And it's nice to hear that you figured out a way to value that instead of trying to gain all that knowledge and be the only expert yourself. I find that very interesting.
I think most people get to a certain point will realize that we're not going to be able to do everything ourselves. And you have to feel comfortable to bring people along to do it together. And I think ITDRC is a great example. Um, I don't think that Joe can build this big size of 2,000 volunteers all by himself. It's a lot of people doing their special expertise, right?
So can you tell us more about your role in ITDRC and what drew you to the organization? How did you meet everybody?
Initially, I was a little bit intimidated because it's all the network engineers that, you know, they wire stuff together. And even though I have a computer science degree, that
I know, they're incredible.
I don't do that. I probably go to Best Buy Geek Squad to get my stuff done. Um, but I like the down to earth feeling that people are doing their best, use their hand, their skill to help other people. So that's what drove me to it. It's more, I know there's no politics. I know my other life, climbing the corporate ladder is all about politics. This group of people, it's just wanting to do the best thing for society. And that's very refreshing. And I feel very safe.
So how were you introduced to the organization? Was it through your own network?
There are a couple of people from my old company that joined the organization. So they introduced me to it. And at that time, there was a person that was more helping or advising some marketing idea. He just left. He took a full-time job. He couldn't deal with it, extra doing some part-time work. So he introduced me to it.
Well, when you look at leadership and the things that you think are important, what do you see with the leadership you like in ITDRC and the leadership you look for in your own world?
The leadership in ITDRC is very decentralized. Um, so the team is almost based on the region and the zone. Everyone solve their own problem. They come together, they share information. Those are all very positive traits. So if one person solved the problem, someone else solving similar problem don't have to look far. They can just get advice very nearby. Relative to my world, um, it's we don't have the concentration of this large expertise. So what I think the difference is ITDRC has a very large concentration of specialized folks, whereas in corporate world, you have few of those, few of this, few of that. So problem solving and leveraging that expertise, it's much harder.
Yeah, I can imagine. And like we've said, your world is it's stacked differently than a nonprofit. So you have to change modes when you go into the office versus when you are interacting with the organization. Do you have a go-to confidence booster? Like what keeps your confidence up? I know in the previous discussion with Ruth, we hit on imposter syndrome and not feeling like you are supposed to be a woman in charge, even though you have that expertise.
No, I don't really think about things like that.
Well, you did say in our last conversation that you don't look based on gender, that you feel like everybody should just be the best. Can you talk about that a little?
I feel we're all hired to solve a problem. So I don't think about actually in the preparation thinking, don't think about gender, don't think about race topic. This will focus, well, I'd rather spend my energy focusing on the problem in front of me. Is the society fair? Is there gender or racial problems or discrimination? Maybe there is, but I don't focus my energy trying to solve it. I want to be fair. Being fair versus being discriminated are two different things. So if there's discrimination, I don't really spend my energy to solve it. I let it roll and I walk away. I take the high road. In a way, if I spend my energy going down that path, I feel I will get more negative thinking or negative energy surrounding my thought. I rather focus on the positive things I can do and the positive energy, so I can go further.
So do you feel like that high road has kept you safe? Is that your go-to there, is taking the high road?
Yes. So in a way, I'm not the best person to go to law school and trying to be a judge, to trying to solve the society problem.
Right.
I'm more solving the commercial profit making side of things. Yeah, if people are, in a way, I tend to choose, do I solve the right or wrong side of things, or do I create jobs? I rather go create jobs, because creating more jobs, more people will be happier. And so I go towards that direction. That's why I'm in sales marketing. I want to go help people to build jobs and create value in the society. I'm not solving the right or wrong side of things.
Interesting. That's so interesting. And we were talking about before, you weren't born here, you were born in Taiwan, and you did a lot of moving around. So you've experienced a lot of culture all over the United States. And I can't remember if you said that you feel like race never came into it because you were just so focused on knowledge being your power over your gender and over race.
Yeah. So just for a kind of just a disclosure, my husband is American. Mainly, my husband is Caucasian. I didn't take his last name. I used my maiden name all along. And here's the story about it. I feel if people want to know me as me, I don't need to have I don't want to have almost a package that make people judge me different. I know that sounds a little bit weird, so let me just punch through to say it. If my resume, people want to discriminate because I have an Asian last name because I'm Asian, let it be. I rather let that happen before I walk into the interview, because with that filtering, I'm going into a little bit more fair situation. I probably have a better chance. I just don't deal with potential discrimination.
That's so interesting. And I mean, we're seeing that more and more, like in my field and stuff like that, my name is attached to a lot of photos. And so you're seeing that more in the business world where women aren't going to change their last names. They don't want to be known as someone else's last name. You can't Google them, and their work won't come up if it was done under a previous last name. So it's interesting that there's a twofold option for you, and it's a filtering process so that you don't waste your time.
Yeah, and then also it's laziness. I think you have your school transcript, you have all your
Yes.
resume, and like, oh, that's just way too much work to change last name.
I feel the same way. I'm like, if someone's going to Google me, I'm not going to go and change all of that work. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, let me look at my questions real quick because I've been going blind since we're recording. So here's an interesting question that Kate, who was not able to join us, put on our conversation. What are the keys to being successful as a woman in high tech?
First, I feel like you have to be fearless. You cannot consider hurting your own feeling as well as other people's feeling. You have to be very direct. So I think that's one of the how I describe myself is I'm very transparent. I'm very direct. If things doesn't work, I say it as is. And then that's probably why I feel okay to be in men's world because I kind of just hang out like a tomboy. I say the same thing they do. I sometimes use the F word. I feel okay with it.
So what technical skills do you think they should have?
I think you have to learn the world you're in. Let's say if you apply for a cybersecurity job, you should at least learn the basic of cybersecurity, even though your background might be literature. If you want to pursue a job in a certain industry, understand that industry, understand what your customers are solving for. So that make you probably more relevant, and then you yourself eventually you will also feel this job, you can recognize why you're doing it.
I love that. Still having a passion to gain knowledge for the job that you're in and knowing why you're there instead of just punching a clock.
Yeah, one of my job was in something almost like a Slack, the tool we use, Slack. I have no personal interest in messaging tools, so that didn't last long. uh, but
I think we've
do,
all suffered a bad job here and there.
yeah. But I do like cybersecurity. I like protection. I like risk prevention. So that's why the ITDRC kind of disaster recovery protection, all that I can associate with. So
Can you tell us?
everyone probably have your own personal anchor.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do in cybersecurity? We haven't hit on that.
I spent more than 15 years in cybersecurity. I started as a product manager and product marketing. So I define features to decide what kind of signal that's ping your system. It's questionable versus the good inquiry. So, that's a very technical thing I did before, and then start gradually to selling to technical buyer that need solutions, being able to explain to them why the solution is better than the alternative choices.
So do you ever see yourself, like you were saying, know why you're doing a job? Do you ever see yourself falling out of love with tech, or are you hooked for life?
No, I think I almost fell out of it. um I don't think I think it's a journey. So early days I design computer because personally I want to use it. So I want to design something I could use. And cybersecurity, identity protection, it helped me to understand all kind of damage people can encounter, whether it's personal damage or company damage. So I need to work with things that I can relate to at that particular moment in my life. So as I get older, I probably will go solve problem like how do I make my phone dial with a bigger button, or I think I need to solve for things that I can relate to.
It's funny that we mentioned cybersecurity and stuff like that, because municipalities have been suffering with hacks and, just, I'm not sure the exact term for it, but their equipment keeps getting compromised. There is recently happened in Texarkana and things like that. Do you ever see municipalities be unprepared, and how do you be more prepared with your own personal cybersecurity?
State and local government. I think federal side is a bit more well prepared. State and local, depending on the skill set, maybe not as prepared as a federal. Federal side has people that specialize in it. My prior job has many people. They are ex NSA folks. It's amazing what kind of things you learn. My current job, we have a lot of ex FBI folks. So federal side definitely is more prepared. So I think we could help a lot of state and local as well as corporations to understand how to protect themselves. As well as there was about a couple years I did consumer security, helping people to protect their own personal identity. What are the things not to do so your bank account doesn't get hacked?
That's so interesting. You have truly been all over, and I think you're a jack of all trades. And I thank you so much for joining us tonight and giving up your time. I know you're a busy woman, and you are truly a ceiling breaker.